So in chapter 4, we introduced the activity model for the system modeling. In the activity model, we focus on the process, right? So in each of the functions we are looking for. So how many different processes or activities involved, and how the sequence for the activities. Do we have any like message flow? And also, you follow, so we use the BPMN modeling system to indicate, to describe, evaluate, and understand. There are other type of charting tools, so you can use it to describe the process. A common one is flow charting. Okay, like flow charts. And flow charts is very similar to the BPMN. It separates the different entities or departments or the positions involved in the process, but it gives more details for the process, especially the documentations. So for example, in the BPMN, we probably only talk about or generate a sales receipt or invoices. But in the flow charting, you need to specify how many copies of the receipts or the sales orders, and how each copy of the document will flow to the different departments, or like go to the customer or go to the vendor. So it's really a more detailed description of the process. So it doesn't really matter you use the BPMN or use the flow charting, as long as you grab the fundamentals, understanding the logic and the purpose and the way we evaluate. Like for example, we have all of the process follow the right sequence, right? Like which activity we do first, and the second, the third, and which activity can be done in parallel orders, right? Like the gateways. And which activity may be a time, like a time triggered, such as the waiting time for customer to wait for their orders. So that's really give you so the understanding. I believe for taking the CPA exam, they used to require like the flow charting skills or even the data flow diagram. And these days, I haven't checked the most recent like the requirements on the specific tools to describe the activity modeling, because we just adopted the new CPA exam from this January, so 2024. But I will double check, so I will make sure I will double check and to see. But as long as you can understand and maybe draw some like the fundamental BPMN, the flow charting is pretty much similar. Okay, like I mentioned, you just add the required details. Is working almost identically, from the developers or users. Okay, that's kind of catch up. But do you have any question or comments? Have you started working on the homework of chapter 4? I do have a problem. I remember it's like a Starbucks, right? So they give you, I used to, before they put on that exercise in Connect, I used to, especially when I teach the face-to-face class, we practice that question together. Okay, like I use the board and the students can use the papers or use like the flow charting symbols in the Word. We try to draw the BPMN based upon that star shape, okay, the exercise. But it's good, okay, because if you only read and I think it's very helpful and beneficial to try some hands-on practice. You don't need to be perfect, because if you don't try, you never know, how to apply. Okay, it's like the Excel, like a project type of things. So questions?
No, none for me.
Okay. Yeah, Nanjua. Okay, and let me
No,
see.
ma'am.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think probably you ladies are the best. I think, yeah, so far I was checking really the top students in the class, like, so far. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Yay!
It makes a difference
Yes,
coming,
yeah,
so I
because I really
appreciate
can
it.
tell. Yeah, I can tell you really make great efforts. I appreciate a lot. Yeah, you show, yeah, you're serious, yeah, very serious, following the materials and ask questions and really, yeah, I'm really impressed. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's see the learning objective. Okay, like we will talk about this UML. This is the short, like acronyms for the modeling we used for the structure model. It's like the BPMN we use for activity models, and we use UML, or it's like Unified Modeling Language to describe the database, because the structure model we focus on the data and information flow in the activities, okay, between the activities and between the entities involved in the processes. And so we will describe and learn the different requirements and features, because if you use a unified modeling language, so means it's kind of developed by, it's kind of the system person use this a lot, right? So as accountants or financial analysts, we are not developers, professional developers, but we do need to understand, similar to the activity models, at least when somebody present like a database designed for our accounting function or part of my departments, right? So when they present, I need to understand, have the model correctly described the functions or transactions or the process. So under our, management, and have the data flow follow the right sequence, have the tables or classes captured all of the attributes we required. So even you are not really the developers, okay, we still need to understand, again, like evaluate and give feedback. It also can help us understand like the real accounting data, okay, how the accounting data in the real business are organized, rather than, what we handle in the homework format or using a Excel, right? So that's the real accounting data, accounting database, and how the accounting database is integrated with the whole database of the business. Okay, so that's like give you additional, like a broad, so like, really broaden our perspectives. Okay, so we will learn like the requirements, like the symbols, the what the elements, right? So the required elements to develop the UML model as we get into the examples. But in a way, in a nutshell, so all the perspectives, okay, is help us to understand how to create a simple database, like concept database. Okay, not the actual database yet. We'll implement our concept database, I believe, in chapter 6. Okay, when we start to use the access, like another project, we implement what we have designed, right? So we can push it into practice. So here we are trying to design the concept models. For example, in the sales process, I need to have my sales order table, customer table, inventory table, accounts receivables, or maybe cash tables, and how these tables are connected to each other, and the instances, okay, like they call multiplicities here. So the different aspects to design, to understand and evaluate a database model. Okay, that's the primary focus of the chapter 5. We saw this modeling, like the the overall modeling in chapter 4 already. So business process modeling include the activity models and the structure models. As we just recall, activity models focus on the transactions or activities or process. So what we do, right? So what we do in this sales process or purchasing module or the HR management or research development. So, you know, you organize all of the activities into the right sequence, and we check maybe the message flows and you know, the gateways and the different aspects related to the activities. Then the structure model will help you identify the data or information flow captured, processed, and reported, okay, from the activities. So in another way, it's like the way we analyze, you know, when we're making journal entries, right? So first we analyze what happened, right? So I purchase the equipment, pay my accounts, payables, pay expenses, right? So those like the activities, but what accounting data we can capture or extract from those transactions. And for learning, we use make journal entries, right? So we use the journal entries to capture the transactions, the data contained in the transaction. We debit cash or credit revenues. So this is really like the database, okay, like, you know, the relationships. Okay. So if I want to draw something here. So writing is so hard, okay, using so this one. So these two are not really isolated, okay? And even because we don't want to make the model to be too complicated, like I don't want to have all of the access, then the data, you know, you can put them together, but it's very hard to develop and also read it. So we separate the process, so group them together and then extract, okay, demonstrate the data flow from the activities in another modeling. Okay, this is UML or some other modeling language. So data or data flows. And even like we use the journal entries. So the journal entry is one type of data, like, and is also will be stored in your accounting database and in your overall business database. Because of accounting, we are, especially financial accounting, where we are recording the transactions by making journal entries and capture all the change on the different accounts, right? So we can analyze the change of each account, prepare the trial balances, and then prepare the financial statements. So the journal entries are the fundamental data we capture from the transactions, and then the journal entry will be posted to the ledgers, and the ledgers will be used to compile the trial balance, and then finally your financial statements. And in the meantime, when we capture the transactions, analyze the transactions, we need to follow the business rules. Okay, there are rules attached to both the modeling system. Like you, in another way, you can say like the internal control, right? For example, when I make for example, for cash transactions, like the cash management, right? We should have the segregation of duties, right? So you probably heard about this internal control, like action or measures, segregation of duties. So the person collecting the cash shouldn't be the person make the deposits, right? I think probably you heard about it. Also, the person preparing the cash receipts, like the clerk for the like the cash accountants, also should not be the person make the deposits. You mean you see this, right? So the person handling the cash, like the cashier, and the cash accountants, and the person deposits the cash, ideally should be separate position or like, the staffing. So we can have a valid and effective control to make sure the cash transactions are accurate and also prevent fraud. Okay, because cash is an important asset. So when you design, I think these rules, when we move to the business transaction in the later chapters using the SAP, we'll see more of the applications. Okay, for the business rules. I remember a quick, for example, when you try to input a customer address, right? So we have a customer database. We have the customer name, right? So customer ID, customer name, and then customer address. When you input the zip code, like the zip code related to the city, and normally we design like the zip code, or like, I think probably we all have experience, right? So when you try to input, for example, like to fill a online form for the state, right? Like the state, and then your like a street address, your city zip code, and the state. The information should match, right? The city zip code and the state. So when you design a database, so what type of rules we need to apply or implement so that when we input address, the information should match with each other. So rather than, for example, there may be many states, they have the same name for the cities, right? So I may have a Paris. I noticed we do have a city called Paris in Texas. Right, so when you put the city, like Paris, so should you put it in different country or put it in the Texas, right? So that's like, so make sure you have a rule, like internal rules to check and matching the zip code and with the city, with the state, and even maybe with the country. Okay, so when the customer or vendors or even the users putting a address, there is a validity check. Okay, validity rather than they make a mistake or intentionally they create some fake accounts. Make sense? Like sometimes when you create a new customer, remember that, when you put an email address, they said they will send you a validation email or a text code to check you have a valid phone number or the email address. Okay, I'm just saying something. Okay, so there are lots of business rules, especially when we have lots of online database, right? So like, the automatic fillings, right? So we really need to enhance the, the rules, internal controls to prevent fraud, errors, or mistakes. Okay, because, that can bring, so if we don't have adequate, sufficient rules attached to the models, the data we captured may have lots of, fraud, errors, mistakes, or even like the process, okay, wouldn't really follow what you have designed. So there is nothing, okay, like all important aspects, okay, think about your modeling system. Okay, that's kind of the overall review. So we have done this, and in chapter 5, we'll focus on the structure. And this one, I added this slide by myself. I think this is a good connection from chapter 4 and 5. Okay, so we can see the the differences and the focus of the activity model and the structure model. So probably you can recall this is a simple BPMN model we talked about in chapter 4, right? It's like a checkout procedure, right? So the customer check out the items, make payments, and then bag the item, or the cashier, okay, or the cashier help the customer scan the item, identify the payments, right? So we have starting to the initiation, and we have a selection of credit card payments or cash payments, but overall in accounting, we treat them all as cash. And then finally, after the payment is approved, we bag the items, and that's end of the process, okay, the activities. So you can see this is the activities. Now think about, given the activity, so don't look maybe like this, the names here, okay. So given the activity model we have here, so what types of data or information should be captured by the process? So data or information, especially from an accounting or finance perspective, how the data is going to be processed, stored, and reported. So from an accounting perspective, so we have the transactions happening here. So in another way, any journal entry we can make out of here. So for a successful scan, payment, and complete the transaction.
Say the question again.
So what journal entry we can extract from here? We can generate from the activities we are looking here.
So are you meaning like a debit to sales and a credit to like account receivables or cash, if it was a cash transaction?
Yes, yeah, that's what I mean, because we didn't really touch account receivable for individual customer, right? The retail customers. So it should be like here, either credit card or cash. We treat as cash, exactly. Yeah, so I'm looking for one journal entry will be recognize the sales, right? So cash and sales. And how about the inventory one? Once the customer bagged the items and left.
So we would debit, we would deduct inventory.
Yeah, inventory should be, but inventory should be credited, right? Because it's,
credit.
yeah, and we debit the cost of goods sold. So this is a matching. Yeah, so that's the typical sales, like the journal entries involved in a cash sales. For example, I, made $100, the pricing, right? Total pricing for the items and the cost, because for customers, they don't know our cost, right? So when we check out, but how the systems know the cost, see here, the database, so you need to pull, like, when they check the milk, the eggs, or, cosmetics, right? So each item, when they scan, we call the cost data from the inventory account. So for example, the cost is 75 in total. So accounting data will be automatically captured and recorded, okay, in a, in this business enterprise system, right? So that's like each of the accounting, like the account, the financial account will be a database. Will be part of your database is like a table under your overall database. So that's, you can see I list most of them already on here, right? So I will have a sales account. And for accounting, the account may be designed use the left, right, like, debit, credit system. But again, is all in your system, is not really manually maintained, right? So like in the SAP, they don't really use debit, credit. They still use plus, minus, but it's only like a system setting. Okay, but we know so the increase is on the credit, and for sales revenue and debit is on the minus. And then the casual account, so left side is plus and the right side, right? So these two are matching, right? So we have 100 captured here and cash captured here. So this will be part of your structure models. Make sense, right? So, and right now this is simple. For example, before I implement, right, this automatically, checking system. That's how you design it. And inventory will reduce 75 on the right, and the cost of goods sold will increase 75. Okay, those are the 4 accounting tables. Then why I still have customer and cashier listed here? Is accounting department managing the customer table or cashier table, or you can call the database?
No, they're not managing that.
Yeah, but who managing? Who maintain the customer information? Like if you have, for example, if you have a table for the customer information, who maintain the customer information?
Management.
Management, and I think mostly will have customer service, right? Or you can say maybe with the marketing department, I'm guessing, right? And the customer database wouldn't be designed as our financial accounts, right? They wouldn't really have this debit credit stuff. It's most like a regular table, right? So Excel worksheet, you have your columns and rows with the IDs, right? So we have the unique customers and we maintain their contact information, maybe with their credit limit, right? So like so on and so forth. Okay, maybe also the salesperson, right? The salesperson responsible for each of the customers. But anyway, so for the structure model, expand. Okay, not only we have accounting database. Okay, is all sorts of data like entities, accounts, and even for example, equipment. All sorts of information we need to capture. Okay, even these days we know even like a customer service, right? So evaluations, customer feedbacks, right? So not numerical data, we still need to maintain that. Like customer purchasing history, customer preference, right? So the age. So we can use those data, right? AI to learn their consumer behaviors, so we can make promotions, right? So data is very important. Okay, all sorts of data. And who probably maintain the cashier data? Like we may have yeah, HR, yeah, if I heard, yeah, HR, yeah, regular employees, right? And on the HR, we may have like subdivisions, for example, like we have manufacturer people, right? So manufacture all general management, right? So like cashier, store managers, but whatever. So cashier is a internal entity, right? So internal employee is part of our employee database. And on the cashier, what information we normally maintain? Employee ID, right? It's like your student ID, then their name, also their address, right? Contact information. Then probably you have your payrolls data, hours, right? Hourly, working hours, right? So we can like, you
Yeah.
know, calculate, the payrolls, right? So you can also of the data, we should maintain, capture, and process, store, and report for different purpose. The accounting data will be captured by journal entry and flow to the ledgers, trial balances, and accumulated to the financial statements. Customer data will be maintained, analyzed, and to help us predict the future customer behavior and purchases, right? So we help us to maintain the customer group. And employee, like a cashier, the working hours, right? So will help you generate the payroll data and other HR management issues. So I just made this example. So before we touch on those, the titles, right? The concepts, for example, classes, attributes, multiplicities, right? So we can have some concrete feeling, okay, what is really a structure model? So it's not really something too theoretical, right? So use this like simple case. Okay, and remember we talk about another activity model in the beginning of chapter 4 is something I got from the either like related to the sales process. Is much more, we have much more, right? So we have 6 positions involved and many more activities and the data flows. And imagine if you try to develop a structure model for that activity model, it will become more, we'll have more tables or more data involved and more process needed, and but so kind of like a more real type of management. So but we are starting from something simple.
So, and that's for the sales. It's going to be a sales example.
Yeah, I think that's the one. Let me open that quickly.
And are you able to show us? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to open that one. We talked about that in last Thursday, I believe. Yeah, let me copy that and paste it here so I don't need to switch my sharing. Okay, so this one. So can you see that? Remember, right? So this is the one we introduced, kind of discussed, right? So a more like a real sales. Okay, this is like the overall sales process. And this is the activity model. We have 6 positions or entities involved. And now imagine if you needed to develop a structure model, like the database model. It will become more entities involved rather than the simple one we mentioned. And you can add at least 4, like the employee side. So how many database, right? So we have sales clerk, warehouse clerk, shipping clerk, credit manager, accountant. Or you maybe say, oh, I have all of my employee, right, table to manage all of them. But we do have other like entity. We have sales order. Okay, in addition to sales revenue, we have sales order. Okay, like the tables or database we need. We do have customer, right? And the customer will initiate. Let me just circle. Okay, like rather. So this will be data, right? And sales order will be another type of data or table. Then shipment, right? The documentation, shipping documentations, credit history or credit record, invoices, customer invoices, accounts receivables, yeah, because this is mostly for wholesales, and cash remittance, and bank statement, deposit remittance. Okay, and this is also account receivable. Credit memo, right? So maybe another database. So I'm just saying, okay, so I would say when you, the database is really a challenging. Okay, when you think about a real database design, okay, really need expertise, to do the job. But again, for our purpose, I'm not asking you become a professional database. We are not a computer person, right? But we can develop or understand, okay, at least the database most close to our, related to our accounting functions or transactions. So we'll learn some basic like sales database or purchasing database, and we'll try to implement in using the Access later. And when we get onto the SAP project, we see the integration of both activities and the database. Questions? So when you try to looking for the structure, okay, let's we see quickly. And normally when we say, okay, like I need to identify, okay, in this process, how many tables I needed to build. Okay, like the table is like each of the entities we are looking here. Or it can be the customer, vendor, our employee, our financial accountant, financial accounts, invoices, sales orders, credit statement, credit memo. So that's basically the tables or the data you need to capture from the process. And which activity initiate the tables, right? For example, customer placed the sales orders, right? So I need to know the operations. So how this data is generated. The sales order only is generated by a customer order, so initiated. And after we send the invoice to customer, a accounts receivable will be created, right? So you need to understand the transactions triggered the data. And then the attributes for each of the table, like the features. So for customer, what attributes I need to describe the complete data. Like I needed normally we need to assign a customer ID, right, or customer number so we can identify the unique customers. I don't want to have redundant customers. Okay, that's not a good. So for a relational or a efficient database, you should not have redundant data. Okay, so as we have the unique IDs. Like for example, imagine in TSU, we shouldn't have a redundant student ID, right? So each student, you have a unique student ID to manage our student database. So attributes, right? So we need a unique ID, and in the database we call primary key, okay, for this unique ID. And then we need the related other attributes like the name, home address, mailing address, or maybe like the contact information and the salesperson responsible for the customer, and any other, right? So any credit limit, okay, for example, and any other information. And for accounting data, we especially need the date, right? The date of the transactions and either increase or decrease or based upon the transactions. Okay, so we can know either debit and credit. So for different tables or data, we assign different attributes. Okay, that's required when we add the data into the system, right? So when you like sometimes when you fill a form, right? So some of the data are required. You cannot skip, right? You must fill, so it cannot be void, right? So you must fill the data. And some data is kind of optional, right? So we do have these flexibilities. Questions? And then let's quickly, so we talk about, the purpose. I add these, the examples we just mentioned. Okay, because if I just say the concept itself, okay, describe the entities or things. So what really are the entities or things they are talking about here is basically the tables or each of the unique data we captured and processed in the system. So you can have financial account, customer, and other entities in the domain of your interest. So describe the relationships in another way. So the transactions trigger the data. For example, customer checkout, right? And the cashier scan the item. So it's trigger the change of the cash, revenues, inventory, and the cost of goods sold. We do need actions to change, to update, right, the tables. Then they call multiplicities. Okay, means the instances of one entity related to the other entity. So like the instances between different tables. For example, I have the customer table and the sales order. Or just for the checkout procedure. One customer can check multiple items, right? So they can purchase and check out multiple items, no limit, right? So theoretically, should it be one or unlimited, right? So one to many, okay, they can check at least one, and then many items. You may say, can they check 0? Right, they do, right? So if they don't have anything purchased, they can just leave without checking out. So I'm assuming the minimum is 1 here. Okay, so 1 to many. So from the customer side, they can check out 1 to many. But now when you're looking for one item, okay, 1 bottle of the milk or 1 carton of the egg, each time they only can be checked out or scanned by 1 customer order, right? So for each transaction, they couldn't be scanned twice, right? So like 1 bottle, you couldn't be scanned twice, right? So if the customer detect you are overcharging them, right? So if you sometimes even ourselves, right? So we double scan, we need to, delete that over, right? Duplicate item. So that's like when think about the rules, right? So that's related to your database. So you have your customer on this side. Okay, this is the C. And this is my order or the item, or like maybe the items. We need to indicate this instance specification. You may wondering why, because the way you define the instance will affect later how you process the data and report the data. Let me put this, I will explain a little bit more. So I will put this like, okay, I will have a, like a LAN connected them. Okay, connected them so I know they are linked. So this side, so I will put 1, minimum 1. Okay, because if I explain here, we'll save time later. Okay, so I have unstable connection. So let me wait. Okay, you can still hear me, right? Because sometimes it's
Yes.
not, yeah,
I
okay.
can hear you.
Yeah. So
Yes.
from the customer side, I need at least one, and then I will put a dot. Okay, then I will put, I think probably M or N. I will just put M. Okay, so means I minimum need to check out one and no limit. Okay, for as many as I want theoretically. The reason, if I don't have this specified, so what may happen when you extract, for example, later when I try to print a customer order, right? Or customer, how many, I want to have a print out for all of the customer orders today. And if you don't specify here, the print out, maybe they are only printing the first item purchased by this customer. They only pick the first item and skip the remaining items. That can be something misleading, right, for the reports. So that's like, you may wondering why it may happen. Is the computer so stupid to do this? But that's actually what can happen, okay, if we don't have this right relay, like instances. Now from this side, we said, oh, the item, okay, each item for each transaction, they only can be checked one time and only one time. Okay, there is no other instances. It couldn't be double checked, or it couldn't be zero, or it must be checked and only checked one time. Okay, so we are looking both ways. So they call how many instances of one entity can be related to the other. Okay, is a double, okay, like a two-way relationship. Make sense? I believe for the structure model, most people feel this instance is the hardest part to understand in the beginning, because it's really, you need to think about really conceptually and see through the instances. Make sense? So for each pair of relationship, the instances may be different. Okay, they have a summary later. Okay, but this is a immediate example following our, the simple case prior, okay, the case. And then finally, as I already mentioned, for each table, all the, the entities or things, we need to specify the required attributes, okay, what the type of data I want to collect, okay, for this entity. For example, here I'm using the inventory, like the SKU, right? So probably you already used this in the project we did. SKU number, right? So the inventory number, and then the name of the inventory, quantity available in the store, so we can know when the customer check out, okay, we can get a immediate update for the remaining inventories, and the cost per item, or you maybe even have the price per item. Okay, but normally in the inventory table, we don't put the price, because the price frequently change, right? But the purchasing cost is stable. Oh, so we put the cost, and the sales price you can put in the order table, okay, sales order table, to find to calculate the sales revenue. Question. Then let me quickly show you another example. So it's not a accounting or business case. Okay, so imagine you are a manager, for example, in a dealership. Okay, with service. Okay, dealer with service. So car dealership and service. And they identified 4 of the entities. I certainly know you have other entities, right? So, but for the 4 entities we identified here, you can see what is the relationships? Okay, what are the relationships? What the activities link each of the entity together, right? And they use a simple verb. Is like the activity. Okay, we have, so again, remember, this is not a real activity model. We are extracting the data, but the data is triggered by the activities. For example, the person, or you can say maybe customer, right, own the mobiles, right? So the cars, they own the cars. So the person is the owner of the cars. And then let's think. So one person, right? So let's think about the multiplicity, the instance thing. So one person can, what's the minimum car number or maximum car number a person can own intuitively? So for one person, what's the minimum instance and the maximum instance they can own a car or own cars? I would say 0, right? Yeah. And many, right? They can, theoretically, they can own unlimited. Maybe it's impossible, but we know, like, lots of the wealthy people really, they own, right? Maybe hundreds of cars, right? But I'm just saying, so theoretically, because when you design this database, if you don't put this many here, for example, when you like have this database, you only have one row, like you probably only have one, like you are assuming one person have one car. But if you design that way, later when the users input, they found out they couldn't add more cars under their name. For example, you have a customer account, right? Like insurance company, right? You can add, right? So after you finish one car, they ask you, do you want to add another car, right? Do you have another car? Do you have another car? If you don't have this designed, you only give them one car option. Make sense? That's your database. That's related.
If not, you'll be limiting.
Right. Yeah.
The capacity of it. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. Because if you don't allow these multiplicities, they only can input like maybe one car for each customer or, owner, something like that. And if you go backwards, okay, think about one car especially. How many owner, like what's the minimum instance and the maximum instance related to its owners? Can we have 0 owner of that? Probably not, right? So a car, yeah, should have, I'm thinking 1. Yeah, I should be like 1 and only 1. I know, yeah, some of you maybe have a joint, right? But I think from the car title, I think probably should be 1 person only, mostly, right? But I'm just assuming this simple case. So a particular car is owned by 1 person and only 1 person. Okay, so you define the relationships. I'm just because pointing you this, and then these are the summary, like the different ways to impress the multiplicities. Yeah, like this is exactly as we discussed, right? And these are other instance examples. 4, and you may see on the different modeling tools, their expression may be slightly different. Like, the one they use store as many. So but I use the M because I do see like some other modeling, they use M or to indicate this on limit. And when under access, when we use access later, they use this infinite symbol to indicate, okay, this maximum, okay, or like unlimited. Okay, so the symbols So be flexible. Okay, but the wording is like all like the explanation, okay, should have the same. So 0 to many, 1 to many, 1 and 1 only, okay, 0 or 1. 0 or 1 we seldom, okay, but there are some cases, okay, you may see that. Let me see, do they have now I think probably we can stop here today because it's like opening the discussion. And now after we think about this, then I can leave you as like a reading, like a assignment. So describe the multiplicities between the other 3 pairs of the relationships, okay, between the person and the dealership. Think about how they can happen. The person needed the forgot the service, right? So like the person is the customer of the dealership, right? So like they ask, they purchase the car from the dealer, or they ask a service, like the car service. So how the customer and the dealership. And then the car and the state, like the DPS, right? So like licensed in Texas or other states. And the car is serviced, right? So serviced by the dealer. For example, this is the service required by the person, by the customer. So think about the multiplicities from here. Okay, and maybe let's try one more. So let's see this in the middle. Maybe like the person or automobile dealer first. So when a person think about, okay, choose to fund the car service. So what's the minimum and the maximum car dealer they can seek, or they can, they want to search?
The minimum would be 1 or 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2 minimum, like probably 1, and yeah, eventually probably you end up with 1, right? But sometimes we do maybe like, we did something here and did something there. So I would say theoretically, I would put maybe a star or many. Yeah, because sometimes again, okay, it's really not a fixed answer. It's really case by case. Okay, so keep it flexible. So our focus is on the analyzing, understanding, rather than, I give you a definite answer, okay, like for the questions. And now when you're looking for a dealer, right? So when the dealer serve a customer, right? So they can have, I'm thinking, between all of the customers and the dealership, they can have 0 customer, right? For a certain time, and unlimited on the other side, right? So for a certain, right? So they can have no customer, or as many as customers, okay, can come. And then you can think more like between the car and the dealers. So one time the dealer can serve, right? I think this is this is like you can serve 0 cars, right? Like service, right? So like, but no limit. Okay, so you can have multiple cars under the service in the same time. Okay, so 0 to many. And here, the automobile can be served, right? So if you choose, so I'm saying that this is not really a fixed answer. Okay, you can think about maybe 1 and many, or like other things. If you already choose 1, right? So I may think, 1 and only 1, or maybe 2 or 3. This one, okay, like I would put a question mark, depending on the detailed situation. Okay, once you already found a dealer, or you are still trying to, finding the right service. Okay. So, but just to open the floor for thinking. Okay, that's the purpose. And then the car, I think probably one time they only can be registered on the one state. I believe this is true, right? So you register on the state of Texas and only Texas. But a state can have theoretically 0 car, right? But then unlimited cars registered under the state, right? So this one should be more straightforward, okay, rather than, by occurrence, okay, under this kind of uncertain things. So does this help?
Yes, a little.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll touch more. Okay, we hope,
Yes.
I think we'll get more practice next time. Okay, think about the business transactions, business data, because the way the multiplicities impact the way you design the tables. For many-to-many relationships like this one, so this one, okay, they didn't put it here. There is a case they call many-to-many, because on both sides we have unlimited. In that case, we kind of need to put a middle table to help you break down the many-to-many to something simple. Right? If you have a many-to-many, it's hard, okay, to design a efficient. So in that case, we'll break down, we'll insert a intermediate, okay, something like a sales line item. I will explain later. So sales line item, so we can have a one-to-many and one-to-many on both sides rather than many-to-many. Okay, so many-to-many, you need to isolate them. Okay, so you can manage them. I think I will stop here and you can continue to read. I believe I already assigned homework, so it will help a little. But next time, I think we'll focus on even they could talk about like this, more like attributes. What are the primary key is like the IDs, okay, and then the foreign keys, table listings, and but I think I will they have the auto this they call generalization examples, but I think I will get something. Oh, this one. Okay, so this is a mapping classes. Okay, if you have time, you can continue to read. They do have a continued presentation of the multiplicities and the tables we need to manage, right? So this auto, this one. So you can push it further, okay, to see how they will implement, okay, and manage.
Yeah, they're adding onto the flow chart.
Right, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
different arms to the
Right,
flow
right.
chart. Yes.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah, and kind of like this auto car. This one will end up, okay, this one can automobile. This study is one-to-many, and this one is also one-to-many. That's become a many-to-many relationship. When you actually design a database, in this part, we need to add a middle, okay, something like in the middle to break down both sides into one-to-many. Okay, I will show you next time. Okay, but this one
Okay.
is easy. It's all automobiles.
Okay.
Okay, and yeah, have a nice evening. Okay,
You too.
okay,
You too.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
You,
Okay,
Professor.
thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.